Hi, let me start. Hi, I'm Hyun and today I want to introduce you artistic efforts to stop climate change and save the earth. Every day, hundreds of papers and researches about climate change are reported. Also, lots of scientists and climatologists are warning the global warming and climate change with scientific and statistical reasons. But, however, general people like me cannot understand those scientific reports and therefore cannot take those warnings seriously. Personally, I was not that alerted about climate change until I watched a TV show, 무한 도전. In this butter effect episode, the 6 of the 7 members are divided into 2 groups, and each goes to North Pole room and Maldives room. And left member Gil is asked to show his everyday life, but Gil has wasteful habits, and which are very common among us. As you see here, these habits are what ordinary people usually have in their everyday life, including myself. And anyway, as Gil showed these bad habits, the heaters in the North Pole room are more on, and the heat melts the ice in the North Pole room, and the water is drained down to the Maldives room. It's like global warming system. And as time goes by, more and more ice melts and more water is drained to the Maldives room. People in the North Pole room get scared as their room is about to fall down, and the people in the Maldives room get scared as their room is flooded. And at the end of the show, each reminds me of the melting North Pole and sinking Maldives. I was really shocked by this show, and I was alerted about global warming and climate change. Also, after this episode broadcasted, there was a big sensation in Korea about climate change. As this case shows, one artistic efforts toward climate change can have more powerful influence on society than hundreds of scientific research and efforts in terms of making public alerted about global warming and climate change. So, let's have a look on other kinds of artistic efforts toward climate change. First, there is a famous movie, The Day After Tomorrow. It warns the catastrophic effects of climate change, and it results ice age at last. And also the documentary An Inconvenient Truth, starred by a famous politician and environmentalist, Al Gore, shows the real climate change and urges us to change now. The ice are gone. Ice is gone. And okay. And then when a big conference around climate change are held, there are lots of artists and environmentalists who come to the city and make interesting performances like this. And in 2008, Poznan, Poland, where UNFCCC held, environmentalists wearing like beggar and with the North Pole bear, Arctic bear mask, did interesting performances like this to stop carbon emitting. And when another UNFCCC held in Copenhagen, Denmark, in 2008, Korean artist Choi Byung-soo carved into ice into penguins in front of the famous mermaid statue at Copenhagen. He repeated this at Yeosu Expo this year, and these penguins, as this penguin melts, they show that global warming is really serious now, and it is hurting Antarctica and penguins too. Lastly, lots of musicians are making efforts to make people alerted about climate change. Especially this collaboration album series, Save the Air, is produced every year, and lots of musicians make and sing their songs in this album, and try to alert the climate change. Also, they have concerts named Green Concert based on this album song, and the second concert held just last Sunday. So, and as I saw you, various artists are making efforts to urge people to be alerted about climate change and to save the earth. Of course, academic efforts are very important and significant in the aspect that it helps humankind predict the future and cope with it. But we cannot deny that no other kinds of efforts can have greater influence on people to feel the seriousness of climate change than artistic efforts. So therefore, let's take more interest in artistic green efforts and try to do something to save the earth. Thank you.
All right, hi. We're going to talk about the big weather. Hi. What is the big weather? Big weather, if you look this word in the dictionary, you might not be able to find this. It is not a word, but rather an expression, and a big weather means climate event that influences the world in great scale. So for example, when you're talking about a small rain, just a shower, it is not big weather because it doesn't influence the world in great scale. And then also when you're talking about the earthquake, it is an event that influences the world in great scale, but it is not a climate event, so it does not belong to big weather. These are the types of big weather we're going to talk about. Because we are the only group consisted of 2 people, we've got 5 more minutes than you guys have. So we've got, we can say a lot of things about many types, and we decided to talk about various types of big weather easily rather than talking about a few types specifically. And this presentation is going to be very easy. First, drought is an example of big weather. Drought doesn't refer to an event, like just one event like tornado, but it means that it refers to a condition when there is less water than necessary. If you look in the picture of the right, many of you people don't know, but Korea this year had the worst drought of the last 100 years. So we're going to talk about the characteristics of drought. First, the process is slower than any other disasters. Drought usually stays for weeks or even months. Because drought is related to water, which all the people need, drought can cause a lot of confliction between people. There have been many wars just for water. Finally, given that people are supported with enough water from other places, the direct effect of drought is not that great. However, the indirect effect like dehydration or disease like malaria is much harsher than the direct effect. So what can you do to prevent drought? The best way to prepare for the drought is building dams or reservoirs. Technology has also improved enough to make artificial rain, by which they send an airplane to air and make artificial cloud and let it drop by water, which can prevent the damage of drought. Yellow dust phenomenon is the second big weather we're going to talk about. Many of you already probably know the effect of yellow dust phenomenon. The yellow sand coming from China comes to Korea with a lot of wind, and those yellow dust is consisted of heavy metals and sand. When you're talking about heavy metals, silicon and iron and tins are consisting these heavy metals, and that is why when they get into a human body, they can cause allergy, respiratory, and eye disease. Respiratory, and eye disease, sorry. Respiratory. Yeah, my bad. And this phenomenon, it comes usually after winter. It doesn't mean that the wind doesn't blow in summer or fall, but in summer and fall, there are lots of trees that can hold the ground still, which means by grabbing the ground, the sand doesn't come with the wind. And in winter, the ground is usually frozen, so it doesn't blow with wind. However, after the winter, when the ground begins to melt, that is the time when this phenomenon happens. You can plant a lot of trees in order to avoid those phenomena, but it is not usually enough because there is too much land to cover with trees, and it is usually impossible to cover them all with the trees. So mask is a must in this time of year. I'm pretty sure that every one of you has a mask in your home for this time of year. And so some food like samgyeopsal, pork, carrot, that is a great stuff, by the way. And seaweeds and pumpkins and other types of food are known as to help you excrete some waste matter, like metal, from your body. So eating such food can help you letting out those sands. They're pretty damn great too. Flood. Flood is the big weather that influences the human's life most. It has been happening the most often, and it is damaging the people's life the most of the types we're going to be talking about. This flood is usually related to other diseases. For example, typhoons can cause the flood, and tidal waves can cause the flood, and this is why this is what doubles the damage of the flood, and that is why people are so afraid of it. So people have been preparing for the flood by predicting the rain and making some inventions to avoid the damage. People have developed calendars to predict when it will rain, and they've made some reservoirs and dams to prepare for the time when it rains a lot. This is one of the results. This is the oldest rain gauge in Korea. This was made to calculate the amount of precipitation in order to avoid the damage of flood. This is rather a recent one. By making a satellite, it is working right now at this time above us, and it can calculate the amount of cloud and predict the routine in order to prepare for the flood. This is all we've got, and Hyunjung is going to explain about El Nino.
I introduced one kind of big weather, El Nino and La Nina. And El Nino is a phenomenon that water temperature rises throughout Peru and Ecuador, South America. On the other hand, La Nina is a phenomenon that water temperature falls down throughout America. Unlike the other big weathers, I'll explain the principle of El Nino and La Nina at first. It is a trade wind in Korea, Muyokpu, that causes El Nino and La Nina to occur. As usual, the trade wind makes the surface wave go from Peru to Australia. But in the case of El Nino, the power of trade wind is so weakened for unknown reasons that the surface wave does not move. And as a result, the underneath wave, which is cooler than surface wave, cancel well. Therefore, when the trade wind is weakened, the temperature of the ocean around Peru rises. On the other hand, La Nina occurs due to reinforced trade winds. When the trade wind is reinforced for unknown reasons, the surface wave does move very well. As a result, the cooler underneath wave away more well, and the temperature of the ocean falls down. And this picture shows that in the case of El Nino, the temperature rises, and in the case of La Nina, the temperature falls down compared to surrounding temperature. Because the reason why El Nino, La Nina occur and the process of occurrence are yet unknown, it is not easy to predict when they happen. And El Nino and La Nina cause other disasters. Those cause a giant drought from India and Australia. This drought in turn causes forest fire around these regions. They also cause hurricane. In the case of El Nino, it decreases the hurricane in the Atlantic, but it causes the hurricane in the Pacific and East Asia. and they destroy ecosystem. In Peru, 900 dolphins and 1,500 pelicans were killed by El Nino. Because of El Nino, the temperature oceans rises, which killed the fish that dolphin and pelican fed on. And for these reasons, Atlas buoy is required. It measures the temperature of this deep sea to predict El Nino and La Nina as well. And because there is no certain reason why El Nino and La Nina occur, Climate Prediction Center analyzes materials about climate change to prevent the occurrence of El Nino and La Nina. And finally, I will introduce one kind of big weather typhoon. Typhoon is a very violent tropical storm, and tornado and hurricane and cyclone are the different types of typhoon. Korea is one of the 14 countries that are influenced by the typhoon. Compared to other types of big weather, typhoon is the disaster that has been doing the worst damage to Korea. You will all remember the typhoon Bolaven that passing by Korea. And as Jung-suk mentioned while talking about the flood, typhoon is likely to cause the flood. It can also result in tsunami, and lots of thunderstorms are made near the eye of typhoon. And typhoon used to be named after the latitude and longitude of its birthplace. However, for simplicity and precision, it is usually named after person's name these days. They were named after the girl's name, like Anna or Cindy. However, lots of objections are mentioned by feminists, and men's names have also been used since 1978. Preparing for the typhoon means trying to minimize its damages. You will all remember what was required to do in the time of Bolaven. Tapes on the windows can harden it and decrease the damage. And government is building lots of breakwaters to prepare for tsunami. However, as you can see, some tsunami are strong enough to break these artifacts. So therefore, education must be necessary. And thank you for listening.